The right-wing extremists of the AfD in Germany are discussing the Dexit, so that Germany leaves the EU. So it's like Brexit, that's why I'm talking about this channel. We know what Brexit did to the UK, but I want to talk about some details what the same move would mean for Germany if the AfD had a say. If Germany were to leave the European Union, it would have a significant impact on the German economy. The EU is Germany's largest trading partner, and it is estimated that leaving the EU would reduce German GDP by up to 5%, so even more than Brexit did to the UK. And there would also be a negative impact on the German labor market. Many German companies rely on the free movement of labor within the EU, and leaving the EU would make it more difficult for these companies to hire workers from other EU countries. And this could lead to job losses in Germany. And in addition, leaving the EU would make it more difficult for Germany to participate in EU research and development projects. And this could have a negative impact on German innovation and competitiveness. Overall, the economic impact of Germany leaving the EU would be significant and, of course, negative. It is estimated that leaving the EU would cost Germany billions of euros each year. And I do have some specific impacts as examples that have been predicted for that case. As I said, the German economy would shrink by up to 5%, and unemployment would rise by up to 2%. And foreign investment would fall by up to 10%, and that's not a small margin. And the value of the euro, of course, would fall against the dollar for the rest, and the trade with other EU countries would be disrupted. And, of course, German companies would have to comply with, for them, then new regulations and standards. And the evidence suggests that the impact would be really, really negative. The exact amount of money that Germany would lose if it left the EU is difficult to estimate, of course, but as it would depend on a number of factors, such as the terms of the withdrawal agreement, they would have to do as well. But some estimates have put the cost at between 35 billion euros and 100 billion euros per year. A study by the Center for European Reform in 2016 estimated that Germany could lose up to 100 billion euro per year if they left the EU. And this is based on the assumption that Germany would have to renegotiate all of its trade agreements with other EU countries, which would be a complex and time-consuming process, and the countries that already have deals with the EU now. It's important to note that these are just estimates, and the actual cost of leaving the EU could be higher or lower, but probably even higher. But the evidence suggests that Germany would lose a significant amount of money if they left the EU. And I also have some specific costs from these that have been identified in these estimates. Because there's a loss of trade with other EU countries and increased costs for businesses due to the regulations and standards, the reduced investment in Germany, the higher unemployment, the lower GDP growth. All of this. And the economic impact of leaving the EU would be felt across all sectors of the German economy, but it would be particularly hard on businesses that rely on exports to other EU countries. And these businesses would face higher trade barriers and increased costs, which would lead to job losses and lower profits. The impact of leaving the EU would also be felt by workers in Germany. As I said, unemployment would probably rise and wages would stagnate. And this would make it more difficult for people to make ends meet, and it could lead to social unrest. Overall, the economic impact of leaving the EU would be significant and negative. I can't say that often enough. It would cost Germany billions of euros each year, and it would lead to job losses, lower wages, and social unrest in the end. So it would not be wise for Germany to leave the EU. And the economic impact of leaving the EU would be significant like hell. But still, there are people like Bernd Höcke, the right-wing leader within the AfD, so to speak, are promoting this. But leaving the EU would weaken Germany's position in the world as well. Germany is a major player in the EU and has a lot of influence over EU policy. Leaving the EU would mean that Germany would have less influence over global affairs. But there are a few reasons why some people might argue that Germany should leave the EU. Some people believe that the EU is too bureaucratic and inefficient, and others believe that the EU is too focused on social and environmental issues, and that it's not doing enough to promote economic growth. But the evidence suggests that the benefits of staying in the EU outweigh the costs by far. The EU has been a major factor in Germany's economic success, and it has helped to make Germany a more influential country in the world as well. So it would be absolutely unwise for Germany to leave the EU. The economic and political cost of leaving would be far too high. But as I said, Bernd Höcke and his consorts are still promoting leaving the EU. When I'm filming this, the results of the AfD official decision for their EU election manifesto is not out. If they will talk about reforms of the EU or downsizing the EU or leaving the EU, will be in there in the end. But still, the whole right-wing extremist wing around Bernd Höcke want to get out of the EU. That's what we know. What they do in their manifesto will be a different topic, but you just need to listen to them. And this is just one example why it would never be good if they ever were in charge. But a Dexit is so out of discussion. And just to add this one, 87% of the Germans, there are very recent polls about that again, 87% of Germans are against Dexit. And there we have to thank our friends in the UK, because Brexit showed everyone in the EU that it is a very bad idea to leave. And just some right-wing idiots are using that for their political purposes and to get votes. But most people are now much more pro-EU than they have been before Brexit. So thank you for that. And if you want to know more about Brexit, and that's why I talked on this channel about the Dexit thing and not on my magazine channel, there are more videos here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.